Hello, welcome to the GSA podcast, episode 9, Unaffordable Housing, part 2, Further Failures. In this one, bit of a biggie, we are going to do a slight recap on Unaffordable Housing part 1, but just a slight recap for those that missed it. Obviously, there'll be the link in the description and we'll provide that one. We're going to look at the response we got to our Section 22 request. We're going to look at the constantly failing, underperforming, underwhelming home ownership team and the systemic issues within them. We're going to look at the external support that we should have received, could receive, perhaps haven't received. We are going to ask what safeguarding issues are in place when it comes to housing association. Who's protecting the budget of our local councils, of our residents, of our constituents? Then we're going to ask who profits from a not-for-profit. We're a not-for-profit, which seems to be a byword for we don't have to actually do anything that brings value to anyone because we're not making any money. Why should we put the effort in? But there are lots of people profiting from a not-for-profit. We will look into that one. And there's a cat I haven't fed yet. We will give you a legal update. Where has Steve Hayes, where's he got to? What's it brought him? How has he protected the reputation of GreenSquareAccord? Has he protected the reputation of Denver? Or has he just really driven it into the ground? All that and more on this episode of the GSA podcast, episode 9.
At the helm, but the culture ain't right. Complaints every day. Customer ignored, never get the say. Never get the say. One more to say. One more to say.
So a little recap. For those of you who haven't seen, please check out episode 7 of the GSA Way, Unaffordable Housing. The link will be in the description and it will be along here too. Please check that out. That gives you the full story. But as a quick recap, we got hit with letters they'd re-estimated back in October. They said, we've re-estimated our costs and we've underestimated, and now you're going to have to pay an amount that totaled up to £250 per month for the next 6 months for every household. Now, as you can understand, this is a cost of living crisis. We're heading into winter where fuel bills go up. We've got Christmas to contend with. People can't find an extra £250 a month. This is making housing unaffordable. And the impact was palpable on the residents here that live with me, that share the house, the flats, my neighbours, within the wider community. And also, obviously, as the GreenSquareAccord resident support site grows, we're getting more and more of this from further afield. So it's a systemic failing. Now, when I looked into this, and I'm no accountant and no mathematician, please, I really am not. It was clear that there were mistakes. So I got a third party, someone you know who you are, who looked into this for me and said, yeah, this isn't right. So because there were mistakes, because there were errors, the other thing they were trying to do was, there's a Section 20. So if you're going to spend over a certain amount, if each household is going to be hit with an extra amount, you have to do, GreenSquareAccord have to do a Section 20 consultation process. Now, by bringing in these charges, backdating them, they were bypassing that. And as we know from the legal action, GreenSquareAccord like to what is known as backdoor a lot of stuff. They push it through the back door, get under, we've done that without legal requirement. Aren't we clever? Now, even when you do the Section 20, even when they do a Section 20 consultation, they still had to uphold complaints where they deleted comments because it's part of a consultation. You can't just delete comments that you don't like, but they did. And I will put up a link to that. Or if I can find it, I might even cut it in because that might be quite relevant to this place. Anyway, so they didn't do that. And because there was mistakes in their maths, well, we had a right to go, well, hang on a minute. We need to do a Section 22. And a Section 22 says, basically, we don't trust your maths. You've got to show us some evidence of this, which they've done. Now, there is a legal time frame in which they have to respond to that. And of course, GreenSquareAccord, being GreenSquareAccord, they didn't respond on time. They responded to some residents, whilst others didn't get the response. And despite this email being sent, our email requesting the information with people on copy and the senior management team, Ruth Cooke, Sophie Atkinson, all of those, the top dogs of this company, they were all on copy, so they would have known about it. Even with that pressure, they still did not adhere to the time frame, and they still didn't get it back within the legal time frame. So what we'll do now is we will show you I'll show you some of the highlights of the response that we did get to them and the lateness and the excuses therein, and then we'll come back to that. So here, in their own words and our words, because we don't like to put words in their mouth, if we're going to hang them out to dry, we do it with their own words because they do it to themselves. Here you go.
Email received on Thursday, 3rd October 2024 at 15:49.
Thank you for your email. I'm writing to confirm receipt of your query and acknowledgement of your Section 22 request, which will provide a full response to within 28 days. Kind regards, Vicky Lancaster, Finance Director.
Email received 4th November 2024 at 17:26. In response to email chasing their now overdue response.
Apologies for this. Letters were issued last week. I am just confirming with the relevant team, but will make sure one is issued to you as soon as possible. Kind regards, Vicky Lancaster, Finance Director.
Good morning. I understand that you requested copies of the invoices that we have received for works carried out at Maureen Christian House, but have not received them. I am sorry for the delay in you receiving a reply. Please find attached an explanatory letter in reply and copies of invoices as requested. If you have any questions, please let me know. Kind regards, Home Ownership Officer.
In a letter dated November 5th, GreenSquareAccord promised to deliver information by October 28th. Now, I won't go into all the details here, those will probably come up in a follow-up, but one thing that really stands out is the administration fee. This fee is essentially funding the home ownership team, a team that's been unable to send out letters, respond to Section 22 requests, or even manage Section 20 consultations properly. They've even sent out 43 letters meant for everyone to just one resident, telling them about Legionella testing scheduled on a day when most of us will be working, making it impossible to attend. Communication has been a major issue. They've failed to keep us updated on repairs, and when we ask, they seem unsure if repairs are even happening. This team is failing, and we're paying for it. This is the standard of service we're being charged for.
Thank you for the email you sent Victoria Lancaster on the 2nd October 2024 regarding your 2023/24 service charges. Victoria has asked me to respond to your email on her behalf. In your email, you raised concerns about the accuracy of the estimated and actual service charge costs for Maureen Christian House and how your service charges were calculated. The Section 22 information you requested will be provided to you by 5 p.m. on the 28th of October 2024. I've investigated the issues you raised with our repairs, compliance and service charge teams, and by reviewing internal records and invoices. Management/administration charges. These fees help us to cover the costs we incur in administering the services provided, as well as producing the certificates and estimates for the annual rent review and service charge review. This fee is 15% of the total cost of the services and is a typical industry standard. As your overall charges have reduced, so has the management admin charge payable.
Let's talk about the home ownership team. Now, the home ownership team is a failing team. It's been failing since I've been involved in 2016. And the more they fail, the more staff they throw at it. So this seems to be a problem that's not just for GreenSquareAccord. Many housing associations do this, many other organisations within other sectors. What the response is, we're struggling a bit here, throw more staff at it. It's not the way. It's not the way. It's just uses more budget and you've got more people sitting around. Then you've got someone who was useless anyway, who's now got 3 people under them that they're trying to manage that they can't do because they're useless. And these bad habits trickle down to these 3. These 3 then become lame ducks and then they need more people and you put more people in with them to support them. And before you know it, this useless person who couldn't do her own Excel spreadsheet is now responsible for 5 team members she can't do. He, it's a she in this case. In fact, we can talk about her. I'm not going to mention names here. I don't need to mention her. I did a whole blog about her. Here, go and read it here. I mean, this person was a bad hire from the start. They came in and straight away when they were on an interim level, they were just here, on a tester, presumably, see how they would get on. it came to light that, the senior management had really serious doubts about the lack of empathy and the communication style of this person. And it only got worse. They say, go and check out this blog. So, of course, this person got in, and this person's really bad mindset of blame, of, it's not us, it's not our fault, it's you, the residents, that do it. That was the attitude. That's now leaked down to who used to be our housing officer, and then to further prove that this is an expanding, failing department, now has someone underneath her. And this person, apparently he loves to put in his email signature, Chartered Institute of Housing. Well, it's just another subscription that we're paying for that is, wasted. He seems to be brought in because he forwards on. So this person at the top, who is useless and hasn't brought any value to GreenSquareAccord or the residents, won't put her name to anything because she doesn't want to be mentioned on this. And I don't blame her. When she's looking for a new job, it would be difficult. Go and check out the post. He now puts his signature to her email, so I can prove that. That's in the thing. Let's just do that now.
Good afternoon. Following your email request of the 1st of October 2024, please find attached an explanatory letter from the Home Ownership Manager in reply. Also attached are copies of the invoices that we have received for works carried out at Maureen Christian House, as requested. These receipts are being forwarded to you in compliance with Section 22 of the Landlord and Tenant Act 1995, as amended. If you have any questions, please let me know. Kind regards, Home Ownership Officer.
And here's that letter. But as you'll notice, the Home Ownership Manager refuses to put her name to it. If you're not willing to do the job yourself, then don't ask others to do it for you. This just adds to the growing evidence of the blame culture that continues to thrive within GreenSquareAccord.
I hope that this letter provides an explanation for the issues you have raised. If you have any questions, please do contact us. Yours sincerely. Home Ownership Officer, MTPI, Cert CIH.
Okay, so there you can see we've got a guy who simply takes a wage by putting his name to emails that his boss's boss won't put their name to. That's the state of the department. So I'm going to give Victoria Lancaster, their finance director, the benefit of the doubt. She's only been with the company a year. It's not quite enough time to corrupt. You need to be here 18 months, 2 years on before you become corrupted in the culture, or before you go, yeah, this is where I fit in because these are my type of people. We like to gossip, we like to moan, we like to complain, we like to not produce much. So that's the sort of mentality. If you're at GreenSquareAccord any length of time, you've got to ask, do I fit in here? And if you do, you need to do some soul searching, I'm afraid. A lot of people get caught in the trap, so it's not fair for me to say it on all of them. A lot of people get caught in the trap. They've got used to that wage because they've progressed harder than they would anywhere else, and then they can't now get out of it. It's something we covered in an earlier podcast. They're sort of stuck there. They can't take a cut in wage to go and work at a level within a big association where they perhaps should be brought down a peg or two so they can learn and get rid of the culture and the mindset that they've got. So a lot of people are trapped there. There are other people there that are just going, you know what, I've got 5 years till I retire, so I'm just going to put my head down, hopefully get on with it and get out with my pension. And good luck to you. I don't blame you for that at all. But someone coming in new and fresh, they get to sort of 6 months and go, I might have made a mistake here. Then they spend the next 6 months going, okay, and then they start to build their exit plan. I don't think Victoria Lancaster would come in and within 12 months already be lying about providing Section 22 responses. I genuinely believe that she forwarded them on to the relevant team, which was in this case was the home ownership team. And the home ownership team then went, oh, sorry, didn't see your email. You didn't see the email that had Ruth Cooke and everyone else on it? You bloody moron. Sorry. It's just so woeful. We're beyond, you just think, how can these guys, and we'll come back to it in the who profits from a not-for-profit. So look, it's a prime example of a failing team under bad management who's in there just because she likes to gossip, just because she fits in with the coffee machine, just because she flirts and says the right things in meetings. And when we looked at the internal emails a while back in 2017, something like that, we could see her emails. They were just blaming. It's not us, it's property services. I'll find some examples to pop up on the screen here. So it's a perfect example of what happens when you get a bad hire. Something I spoke to about in a housing sector podcast with Josh. It's, the cost of a bad hire. It's not just those wages, it's the impact it has and the culture it has, the negative impact it has on your culture. And now we've just got a department that just needs to be put out to pasture. They need to completely reform it. And it's a department that has now broken the law. They haven't responded in time. Didn't get it. Another excuse. They got the maths wrong. Didn't get it. They've sent out screenshots. Well, that might be enough. We're trying to push back on that. And when we go to tribunal, which is their thing, go to tribunal if you don't like it. First here, tribunal if you don't like it. I mean, it's that sort of lack of empathy that you get from. That's the GSA way. Okay, let's move on. Let's have a look at some of the external support.
Seeking external support. Dear Annalise Dobbs, recent developments have revealed alarming inaccuracies in service charge demands issued by GreenSquareAccord, impacting residents across their properties. GreenSquareAccord has admitted to errors in their calculations, resulting in revised charges requiring many residents to pay an additional £250 per month over 6 months. These charges are set against the backdrop of a cost of living crisis, disproportionately affecting those least able to absorb such increases. However, when issuing these revised costs, there was again errors in their accounting, as admitted by GreenSquareAccord. This situation raises urgent questions about oversight, accountability, and the protection of public funds, particularly housing benefit, which covers a significant portion of these charges. I'm calling on you, as my MP, and on all those in positions of authority within areas where GreenSquareAccord operates, to address the following. Ensuring accuracy. What measures are currently in place to ensure that housing providers like GreenSquareAccord issue accurate service charge figures? Immediate action. Now that GreenSquareAccord has admitted these errors, what steps will you take to ensure they provide residents with corrected figures supported by legally compliant documentation such as receipts and invoices? Protecting public funds with housing benefit, covering a large proportion of service charges. Who is responsible for ensuring that this budget is not misused or misallocated due to these inaccuracies? Accountability and oversight. Why have these discrepancies gone unnoticed by regulatory bodies or local authorities until now? If oversight is not your responsibility, who should residents turn to for support in holding housing providers accountable? This letter is not just an appeal. It is being shared publicly, alongside a blog post that outlines these issues in detail. It is vital that residents and the wider public see clear accountability and decisive action in response to these systemic failings. You can also find further background on my GSA Way podcast, GreenSquareAccord, Unaffordable Housing. This is also forming part of a series of posts on my housing sector website to support other residents who is ensuring that housing providers like GreenSquareAccord, under Ruth Cooke's leadership, are not defrauding councils or the government, whether by error, incompetence, or design. And if no one is taking responsibility, then what does this say about the state of oversight in the housing sector? This is a matter of trust, fairness, and accountability. I urge you to respond and outline the steps you will take to ensure that residents and public funds are protected. Yours sincerely, Ben Jenkins.
Dear Mr. Jenkins, thank you for your email. Registered Social Landlords Administration is not regulated locally, but at the national level, by the Regulator of Social Housing, https www.gov.uk/government/organisation/regulator of social housing, and, as you know, the Housing Ombudsman, https www.housing-ombudsman.org.uk/residents, can intervene when things go wrong. Please do let me know if there is anything I can do to help you press your concerns with these bodies. With best wishes, Office of the Right Honourable Annalise Dobbs MP.
Dear Annalise Dobbs, thank you for your response. While I appreciate your acknowledgement of the national oversight bodies, it is deeply disappointing that I, along with other residents, have consistently raised these issues to your office, local councillors, and others in positions of authority without receiving substantive support or intervention. As you are well aware, I have repeatedly highlighted serious failings by GreenSquareAccord, including unsafe homes, damp and mould, leaks, fire safety hazards, and more. Despite bringing these to your attention, the response from your office has been, at best, passive. For my efforts to advocate for residents, I have faced significant backlash, including being taken to court twice, arrested at my home, harassed, losing earning opportunities, and being slandered. Both court cases resulted in strong criticism of GreenSquareAccord by the judges, citing their waste of funding and inappropriate actions. The police case was dropped due to GreenSquareAccord's inability to provide evidence to support their claims. They have also unsuccessfully attempted to remove content from various platforms, citing harassment and copyright breaches, all of which were unsubstantiated and failed. It is not just my voice that highlights their failings. The Housing Ombudsman has been extremely critical of GreenSquareAccord. They have been downgraded by Moody's, faced scrutiny from Wiltshire Council, and consistently receive scathing reviews online. When all these sources are combined, a clear and undeniable pattern of systemic failure emerges. This pattern cannot continue to be ignored by your office. The latest service charge miscalculation is a glaring example. It should not fall on residents like me to uncover these errors. GreenSquareAccord themselves have admitted to mistakes in their accounting. Surely this warrants immediate action from your office to investigate and ensure public funds are not being misused or wasted. Oxford City Council, for example, cannot afford to sustain inaccurate charges or fund miscalculations, particularly during a cost of living crisis. Additionally, in a recent email to you from Victoria Lancaster, GreenSquareAccord Finance Director, it was falsely claimed that all Section 22 requests were responded to within the legal timeframe. This is categorically untrue. Several residents did not receive a response, as acknowledged by GreenSquareAccord themselves when these residents followed up. It is unfortunate that despite being in her role for less than 12 months, Victoria Lancaster has seemingly adopted the negative culture of misleading governing bodies. This pattern of deception is not new. Sophie Atkinson, GreenSquareAccord Executive Director of Governance, previously misled the Information Commissioner's Office, a matter I will share in further detail at a later date. The ongoing culture of dishonesty within GreenSquareAccord underscores the need for greater scrutiny and accountability, which I would hope you and your office would actively support. I must also address the potential conflict of interest. I'm aware of your personal connection to Ruth Cooke and understand Labour's pressing need to support housing developments. However, this must not come at the expense of your constituents' well-being or the protection of public funds. I am pleading with you to take a stand for residents and our community. At the very least, I urge you to support a review of GreenSquareAccord's financial practices. The mismanagement of service charges and the broader issues I've raised are not isolated incidents. They reflect a consistent pattern of negligence and failure that affects not only residents, but also public budgets. Your role as an MP places you in a critical position to ensure fairness, accountability, and proper oversight. I hope you will reconsider your stance and take decisive action to support those you represent. Yours sincerely, Ben Jenkins.
Dear Mr. Jenkins, thank you for your email. I fear there may be a misunderstanding here. I have taken no stance in support of GreenSquareAccord in this dispute, and I have no personal connection to its chief executive. I am always willing to work with councils and registered social landlords to promote the provision of social housing where it is needed, and equally to ensure that that housing reaches a good standard and the residents are fairly treated. I have written to GreenSquareAccord taking up the points you raise, and I will get back to you as soon as I receive a reply. With best wishes, Office of the Right Honourable Annalise Dobbs MP.
Dear Ms. Dodds, thank you for your reply and for clarifying your position. I greatly appreciate your willingness to engage with GreenSquareAccord regarding these concerns. If you require any supporting evidence to verify the claims I've raised, I'd be happy to provide relevant documentation. For example, I can share emails that demonstrate inaccuracies and false statements made by GreenSquareAccord representatives, including Victoria Lancaster and Sophie Atkinson. I look forward to hearing the response from GreenSquareAccord and understanding your plan to address this ongoing issue. It is essential to ensure that residents and local authorities are not being unfairly overcharged due to the landlord's inability to calculate service charges accurately. In the interest of transparency, would you be able to share a copy of the email you sent to GreenSquareAccord? Thank you again for your time and for taking these concerns seriously. Best regards, Ben Jenkins. There was no response to this email sent on the 13th of November, so I followed up a week later. Whilst GreenSquareAccord seldom respond to residents within their promoted timeframe, I'd expected them to respond to an MP. Dear Ms. Dodds, thank you for your previous response. I appreciate your willingness to take up these issues on behalf of residents. However, I am following up to ask for clarity on several key points. Response from GreenSquareAccord. Could you please update me on the response you have received from GreenSquareAccord? Specifically, what reassurances have they provided regarding addressing the concerns raised? Were they able to clarify why they failed to respond to some residents within the legal 30-day timeframe under Section 20? Potential relationship with GreenSquareAccord. Labour's pledge to build 1.5 million homes highlights the importance of partnerships with registered social landlords. It is reasonable to assume that GreenSquareAccord may have applied for and potentially received grants or funding approved by your office or colleagues. Would this not constitute an indirect relationship, and does it not emphasise the need for robust oversight to ensure accountability and fairness in their practices? Safeguarding budgets and residents. GreenSquareAccord has now admitted mistakes in the initial figures sent to residents. They have failed to respond within the agreed legal timeframe of Section 20, have been unable to provide supporting invoices, and instead sent screenshots from internal systems. This has escalated the matter to the point where residents are now prepared to take this to tribunal. What actions will your office be taking to safeguard Oxford's budget, particularly when housing benefit and other public funds may be affected by unjustified, inaccurate or inflated service charges? Meeting with residents. I would like to request a time for you to meet with some of us at Maureen Christian House to see firsthand the challenges we are facing as your constituents. We believe this would provide valuable insight into the ongoing shortfalls that are deeply affecting us. I look forward to hearing from you regarding these points and appreciate your continued engagement on this matter. Kind regards, Ben Jenkins. As of Friday 22nd November, there has not been a response from the office of Ms. Dobbs.
Okay, so external support. So earlier we showed the email that we got sent to Annalise Dobbs, and she still not responded. She apparently emailed them. Well, that must put a fear of God into them, isn't it? So Annalise Dobbs as MP, she's not safeguarding this budget. She's not really supporting the residents, constituents. In her case, residents of GreenSquareAccord, we are constituents of Annalise Dobbs. For how much longer, I don't know. So there's a lack of response there. And part of the reason the government don't want to get involved, particularly Labour, is that they promised they're going to build 1.5. Labour have promised to build 1.5 million homes. Something that, again, I spoke to in another housing sector podcast where it's pretty much unachievable. They're not going to be able to do that. But they need to build as many as they can. And there was a press release today from their office saying, well, we're not going to commit to figures, but yeah, probably won't make it. So yeah, we're already welching on that deal. It's impossible to do because they haven't got a planning in place. It would take, if you started building today, you wouldn't have 1.5 million homes built. And yet you got to go through the planning and everything else, which is going to be 3 years. So you've only got 2 years. So in the next 5 years, 1.5 million homes will not be built as Labour have promised. And just watch them welch on that deal now. So Annalise Dobbs, though, is probably part of within the council, Oxford's council, of saying to GreenSquareAccord, well, we need you to build new homes. And GreenSquareAccord are going to take lots of funding. They're going to take lots of benefits for building these new homes. They're going to do that all through their little offspring, the local homes. That's what they're going to do. So it's kind of impossible for Annalise Dobbs and Oxford City Council to approve these grants and then go, oh, but you're not very good. You're a really bad housing association because I've just given you a grant. So it puts them in a very difficult. So GreenSquareAccord and Ruth Cooke know this. They've got them over a barrel. You need new homes. You need to talk to Ruth Cooke. If you're speaking to Ruth Cooke, you better not be speaking bad about her because look at the effort she'll go to silence a negative narrative. And Ruth Cooke is just growing and growing and growing within the sector. She is now part of the National Housing Federation. What sits on that board? Anyway, we'll cover a bit later on. It's not about slating her on this one. So you got councillors and you got MPs impotent, unable to do anything. The local press. Now, let's show you an extract of an email that Steve Hayes sent to the Oxford Mail. Now, we had a fire across the road. The fire brigade were called. Out they came to put out this fire. We had all of the residents, I'd say all of them, definitely 90% of the residents, all stood outside in the freezing cold. I took down some jumpers and some big hoodie things we've got, these big fleeces. We took down for a couple of them because we're nice like that. We took some pictures, sent it to the Oxford Mail, and the Oxford Mail posted it. It said, here is a fire on Oxford block of flats. And Steve Hayes, well, he didn't half rip into them. Shows what contempt he has, even for, probably because he wants to be a journalist. Well, a bit like myself. He wants to be a journalist, didn't become a journalist or moved into communication. But this is the way he speaks to the Oxford Mail and really rips into them. Let's have a look at that email exchange.
An excerpt from an email sent by the office of Steve Hayes, Communications Director at GreenSquareAccord, where he still claims that my decision to notify the Oxford Mail about a fire at a GreenSquareAccord property constitutes personally smearing the organisation.
Hi, both. I am writing to you regarding a story you ran on Saturday, 17th February about a fire in one of our properties. Grenfell comparison made after fire breaks out in Oxford. There are some issues I need to raise about this story, and I would kindly ask that you take relevant action. 1. Right to reply. We received an email to our press inbox from Ben on Saturday at 10:08 a.m. asking for our comment on this story. While this inbox is monitored, as this was a Saturday morning and given the nature of the query, I am disappointed that you did not attempt to call us, as this is standard practice for journalists who contact us out of hours, especially on stories of this nature. The press phone details are clearly listed alongside the press inbox here. Contact us. GreenSquareAccord. Can you explain why you did not call, as this led to a delay in us seeing the message and being able to respond? I see that the story ran on Saturday anyway, despite the fact the inquiry gave no deadline. For context, unless it is in relation to an ongoing emergency or breaking news, most media outlets allow us at least 1 day to respond, and outside of extraordinary ongoing events, I've never known anyone contact us on a Saturday morning with an expectation of a response the same day. While I appreciate you added a line at the bottom of the story saying we had been contacted for a statement, as you know, once a story is live, our right to reply has been severely diminished, and the story had already made its way through the news cycle by the time you made some amends to reflect the context I provided on Sunday morning. 2. Accuracy. As a result of you not waiting for us to reply, the story contained inaccuracies and misleading statements. For what it's worth, I have included a response below, and I would appreciate it if this can be included in full and that you reconsider aspects of the story as a result. The statement should address these inaccuracies, but I am disappointed that you went ahead and published them without verifying any of the facts with us. The basis of the original story was concern that not everyone had been evacuated. Had you waited to hear from us, we could have told you that the policy for the building was stay put, and that in fact, customers are advised to stay in their home unless a fire or smoke is affecting them. The unfortunate result is that we may now have residents elsewhere in Oxford or other areas who are reading this and now feel unnecessarily concerned about their welfare. You seem to have taken what the unnamed person who called you said as read, and this needed context and verification before being published. Assuming the individual who called you is Ben Jenkins, which I strongly suspect it is, this individual has a long-running smear campaign against GSA and takes any opportunity to besmirch our reputation to the extent we have had to take legal action against him. And he recently signed a legally binding undertaking not to contact us. Successful court outcome protects GSA customers. GreenSquareAccord. While you couldn't have known this, it adds further weight to the view that you should have waited for our response before running the story, as your source almost certainly had ulterior motives. I would argue that in this instance, the story was not breaking news happening in the moment as the fire was already long extinguished, It was surely more important to verify the facts and get our response than it was to get the story live. Prioritising the latter over the former resulted in it being inaccurate and misleading. 3. The headline and comparison to Grenfell. As a social housing professional, I, like some of your readers based on the comments on this story, find this comparison offensive and misleading. Can you explain on what basis you feel it is justifiable to compare a fire which was contained to a kitchen with no casualties or injuries to a tower block fire in which 72 people tragically died? The only reference to Grenfell appears to have come from the person mentioned above. The last false alarm was Wednesday. Unfortunately, people only tend to listen when there has been a fire. Grenfell is a prime example. The building this person lives in also has a stay-put policy, which has been clearly communicated to them. You have taken this unverified information from an unnamed source and created what by any measure is sensationalist and misleading. I would request that you amend this headline to remove the reference to Grenfell. Given the reputational impact this could have, and the concern it could create long into the future, I will have to consider what additional steps we can take to get this addressed if you are not willing to do this. I fully understand that our job is to provide timely responses to you. This is something we have done many times previously for your outlet. In each of the previous occasions we have provided statements to you, your journalists have given us a fair time frame within which to respond and dealt with the stories professionally. As a result, the stories are balanced and well-researched. I have to say that in this instance, I don't feel this is the case, and that this falls well below the journalistic standards I have experienced from your publication previously and regularly experience from others. Here is our statement for the story. I would be grateful if you can include it and respond to my other points as soon as you're able to.
Now, apart from the fact that he says, well, the building acted the way it should do. No, the fire brigade put the fire out. They were the ones with the big hoses going up ladders. So it wasn't that the building behaved in a way. And everyone's under a stay put. Well, then why were, let's be generous, say it was just 80% of your residents stood out there in the street because they weren't aware of the procedures. And then on LinkedIn, Steve Hayes made this thing, we're going to GreenSquareAccord be posting to everyone. They didn't post to everyone. He made a little animation cartoon where he did his lovely little voiceover. Sorry, that's a bit underhanded. Let's try and be a bit more professional, Benji. That's what he does. He made an animation. That was his way of solving it, and he didn't like it being compared to Grenfell. So Oxford Press, and whenever I have reached out to the press, they get this huge pushback. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. We see how they control the narrative. So Oxford Mail are probably going, not sure what side of the fence we sit on. Another one was Inside Housing. We put them on the list. They're not interested. And why aren't they interested? Why don't we move into who profits from a not-for-profit?
Who profits from a not-for-profit?
So one of the big excuses we get is, we're a not-for-profit. We're allowed to charge this, but we don't make any profit. All our profits are in turn put back into the company. But who does profit from a not-for-profit? Well, for a start, you got Ruth Cooke, who's had a pay increase. Now, is it $290,000 a year for having it on record that she's failed, for failing to achieve the merger, for failing to install the correct culture, for failing to rebalance the books, for failing to bring corporate strategies to life, Yet, she's now part of the National Housing Federation. Who are the National Housing Federation? Well, they're funded by memberships. Who will be paying memberships? Lots and lots of profits will be paying memberships to the National Housing Federation. So you've got Ruth Cooke earning a good wage, profiting from a not-profit. You've got the National Housing Federation, on which she sits on the board, profiting from not-for-profits. We've got that home ownership team and a whole load of others. What I perhaps unfairly called seasoned housing association wage wasters. I did call it, was it uncruel? Was it uncruel? Was it a bit cruel, a bit unkind? Perhaps. However, I said it and I stand by it. You've still got, hello little girl, all right? We've still got a lot of seasoned housing association wage wasters, and they're there taking their money. Who else have you got? Chartered Institute of Housing. Well, what are they actually doing? Well, this home ownership guy, he's paid a membership, so there's a membership of his that's being paid for by GreenSquareAccord. They have these events that they put on, and people sponsor these events, go to these events, so they're profiting from not-for-profits. Not-for-profits are funding the Chartered Institute of Housing. Inside housing. Well, who pays for inside housing? Well, there's a subscription model. You can sign up to that. So there's a lot of people funding it who genuinely pay for it out of their own pockets. But you'll also have not-for-profits who are buying subscription fees for that. So their guys can stay up to it. They'll also have the people like Steve Hayes who want to be promoted there. Now, GreenSquareAccord have dialed that down a lot since a couple of years back when he first came in. And we're constantly on there. So to be on there, you have to be funding it. You have to be hiring tables, going to events. You have to be sponsoring awards. You have to be doing that. So inside housing profit from not-for-profits. House buildings. So the legitimate arm, the profit arm of GreenSquareAccord, they profit from not-for-profit. So there are lots of people profiting from not-for-profits. And then we have a whole load of independents itching to get on there. You know, they silently support me by privately messaging me. Oh, Ben, we agree with everything you're saying, but can't possibly sign with you for it. No, because you want to get your purchase orders signed by the likes of GreenSquareAccord. Because you want to profit from the not-for-profits. And to do that, you have to conform to the narrative. The Chartered Institute of Housing must conform to the narrative. The National Housing Federation must conform to the narrative. You know, inside housing, although they'll be critical, they must still adhere to the narrative. Because they're profiting from not-for-profits. That's where their income comes. No one's going to bite the hand that feeds them. And to the independents that are out there, there's a sea of change coming. You know, there are lots of great people working within the housing associations. There really are. And through my housing sector podcast, I meet more and more of them every week. Really dedicated, hardworking people who see housing as a vocation and they want to do their best. They want to do their best by it and they know that the culture needs to change. And the culture is changing. The culture is changing because the voice of the tenants is becoming more vocal and is becoming more heard. You know, it's harder to ignore. So the independents that are going, no, we won't talk about Ruth Cooke because, you know, I kind of met her the other week and I need her to sign off this PO and we want to profit from a not-for-profit. Be careful, because as a resident, and I'm a resident of GreenSquareAccord, whether they'll deny it, they keep denying it, but I am a resident of GreenSquareAccord. I'm paying, and I'm not going to keep paying. I don't see why I should pay for a failing home ownership team. And if we replace them, and they need to be replaced, we need to get rid of a whole load of dead wood throughout GreenSquareAccord and throughout the sector. If you're not bringing value, you need to go. And we're not going to replace you with the same. If your mindset, so if you're an independent out there, your mindset needs to be different. You need to be in here to spearhead the change that's needed. The sweeping changes that need to be adopted by housing associations across the UK. So independents, make sure you're on the right side of the fence, because when us residents start picking out and replacing people, when housing associations go, yeah, we can't act like this anymore, the change has happened. We can't, the old mindsets have gone. We need a new mindset. It's the only way we're going to survive. When that happens, be careful, because we want the right-minded people in there. This culture's dead. Let's bring a new one. So who profits from a not-for-profit? Far too many.
Legal action update. Another costly and failed venture by GreenSquareAccord.
Okay, so a legal update. So Steve Hayes and Sophie Atkins, between the two of them, have tried to have me removed from LinkedIn. Failed. Tried to have me removed and censored and post-removed from X. Failed. In fact, this is before they decided they were coming off X because there's too much hatred on there. Too much hatred for your brand. Too many people putting comments on there. Facebook. Tried to have me removed from Facebook. Still on there. Tried to have me banned and blocked from Facebook. YouTube. Tried to have these podcasts taken down. Failed and removed. Lied internally. Said they had. 2 court cases failed, both dismissed. They had to pay costs, huge costs for both of them in trying to get this removed. Copyright infringement, harassment, all these false claims they've made. They have had me arrested. All charges dropped because they were unable to provide evidence. And we'll do a whole episode. I keep meaning to. I'm still waiting for things from Thames Valley Police. But there was no evidence. The subject access request, there was no emails. There was no evidence of it. So it was just wasting police time. The latest one, he tried to have the website removed, wanted all the posts removed, the GreenSquareAccord resident support site, wanted them all removed because we breached copyright, something he'd already failed to do in court. Failed. I had to respond and say, yeah, I'm prepared to stand in court for this because I'm not taking it down. I'll go to court. Then he had to go, all right, we'll go to court then. He did, and of course he didn't, because he's now lost the backing of GreenSquareAccord, I think. It's now just a personal vendetta as he tries to protect his own image. Because he's not protecting the image of GreenSquareAccord. He's trying to protect his own image, and I suspect because he wants to move on somewhere else, he wants to get out. Rats leaving a sinking ship. So, and obviously whenever people search for his name, I should imagine a pertinent interview question is, how are you dealing with this guy? What happened here? Why didn't you communicate with him? You're a comms hero. Why didn't you sit down? Now, and this has to be the big question. Imagine how this narrative could have changed if, back when I started to raise valid concerns and complaints, everything is upheld. I've not told any lies. They've never come for me for slander. They've never come after me for saying anything that's untrue, have they? No. Imagine back then if they'd gone, you know what, we're making some mistakes. Imagine if pre-merger Ruth Cooke had gone, this is going to be difficult for us. We're going to have trouble implementing our systems. We're going to have trouble integrating staff, combining two workforces. It's going to cause teething problems. Imagine if they'd been on the front foot on that one and gone, actually, Ben, other platforms, other housing association activists, a term I don't consider, but imagine if they said, look, we are going to fail. Look, dear residents, this is going to be a difficult time. In the long run, we think it's going to be better. In the long run, it's going to benefit you. But for the next, well, I was going to say 12 months, but it's been 2 years now, isn't it? For the next 12 months, these are some of the interruptions to service that we can expect. Imagine if Ruth Cooke said, Steve, look, we've got this young upstart website, a young website that's up and running. It's GreenSquareAccord resident support because we kind of let him down. Why don't you work with him? Why don't you work with him so we can help kind of control that narrative but not put the spin on it? He's not going to let us put spin, but let's be truthful. We're bound to fail a little bit during this process. And if we're upfront about it, we can prep our residents. We've got a vocal resident happy to support our message and to perhaps install some patience into people and say things are getting better. Perhaps we can use them as a lead contact. How different would this story have been? I think it would have been hugely better. But of course they didn't, because I had, when I started the website, I remember celebrating getting 12 unique visitors in one day. But now it's growing and I'm still here, and their response to try and get me shut down has shown how damaging they find me. And I'm not damaging to them. I'm not threatening to their staff. I'm not causing them any damage. But what I am doing is showing the untruths behind that narrative that they want to carefully control. So, is Steve Hayes protecting GreenSquareAccord's brand? Nope. Is he protecting his own? Nope, but that's probably his intention. I think he's given up on trying to protect GreenSquareAccord's brand. It's another wage we could do without, isn't it? It's a whole team of people there that we could do without. Is he controlling the narrative? Yeah, to a certain extent, because he's got the support of the Chartered Institute of Housing, of Inside Housing, of National Housing Federation. They've still got all that support. There's still too many people profiting from the not-for-profit that they'll support them. And that narrative must be allowed to grow. Mainstream media is starting to come around. Just the other night, Suze was on Sky News talking to Sarah Jane May, a lovely, fantastic woman at Sky News. Two fantastic women, her and Suze, talking about housing. So mainstream media is starting to come around. And I think as Labour fall behind in their 1.5 million homes and we start asking the questions about the failing housing associations are able to maintain their homes, I think that narrative's going to crack us all. And I think this action, the last, we wait for the next legal action. Will it be court? I don't think they'll get me. I don't think they'll send police round again. I mean, that was a complete fool's errand because they just don't have any evidence. So it'll probably be a court one. They'll keep trying with YouTube and websites to try and get things removed. But even now, there's the paper chain. So when they report it to YouTube, YouTube go, Right, and it'll be from a new account. They keep creating accounts to do it, and YouTube will go, well, no, the content's fine. The content's not breaching it because we've already looked into it. Same with the website, unless they're prepared to go to court. And if I go to court again, well, even if I was to lose a court case, I would just sit there waving my debit card at them, because we're at that point now where, bring it on. Or change your mindset, get with the program. Let's see what all this legal action, what has it led them to? It's led them to this.
The case I want to talk about today is that of Ben Jenkins, a citizen who made critical posts and comments in various forums about the housing provider with whom he co-owns his home as a shared owner, GreenSquareAccord. In my work as an elected representative, as a local councillor, as a London Assembly member, and now as an MP, I have often met and worked with and supported people like Ben. Campaigners who speak up when their housing provider fails, when their complaints disappear into the system, when their attempts to work with and multiply and show the patterns in the impacts that are happening to their fellow residents are delegitimised. We have all seen how these kinds of dynamics worked around the disaster at Grenfell and the way the residents there were treated before the fire happened, about the ongoing issues within that building. These are all too common, and it is exactly the kinds of concerns that local grassroots campaigners bring out that the big powerful companies and organisations that run these homes most want to suppress. You can see why the dynamic of SLAPPs comes into play in these cases. Now, Ben Jenkins has faced a series of serious legal threats from his social housing provider. He spoke out about the company's inadequate response to residents' concerns, including things like drug taking in corridors, poor quality repairs, safety risks. It's very much in the public interest for Ben to be speaking out freely about these issues, because safety concerns in housing completely depend upon maintaining good standards, public accountability, and ultimately on this kind of whistleblowing. It's also the case that residents in the blocks had tried to raise the issues through official channels but hadn't been adequately listened to. So taking things to a higher level is quite legitimate in this case. Now, no one is saying that Ben didn't send a lot of communications and didn't publish information negatively about his housing provider, but this should be something that people are free to do. And Ben's activities have been vindicated in their substance. The evidence of the issues in his block are very well documented. There's images and video footage that were published by ITV, who reported the issue based on Ben's public campaigning. There were also many complaints by other residents posted to Facebook. These have since been taken down. But there was an admission by the housing company in response to ITV that residents' complaints had not been adequately handled. Jenkins and numerous other residents have also now received payouts, and the Housing Ombudsman has found that the housing provider had failed to adequately respond to a series of serious complaints, including a rat infestation, a broken boiler, a burst toilet system, noise complaints, and a roof that needed to be repaired. But still, by speaking out about these issues which needed to be dealt with, Ben faced a series of legal threats for his campaigning. He was accused by GSA's lawyers of harassment, of copyright infringement for using their logo on his blog, and accused of putting himself forward to complain on behalf of tenants who should have contacted the company directly. It's a very familiar phrase that I've heard many times before. They claim his criticism was excessive. They said it targeted individual employees, which he named on social media, and they also said it was so frequent that it prevented the company from being able to respond to other residents' issues, which obviously they were clearly doing. GSA demanded in their legal threats that Jenkins signed undertakings to avoid legal action himself, including a commitment to refraining from any conduct that causes or is likely to cause a nuisance or annoyance to any of the claimant's employees, agents or contractors, a condition so very broad that Ben Jenkins felt he had no choice but to refuse. The letter itself threatened that failure to sign these undertakings could incur legal costs which are likely to run into thousands of pounds. This kind of threat made to somebody who lives in affordable housing is clearly a threat. Ultimately, Ben Jenkins did sign a more limited series of undertakings, but refused to take down his website criticising the housing provider. Finally, I want to say that the battle with GSA has had a serious and ongoing effect on Ben's mental health. He hopes that by shedding a light on these matters, the well-being and safety of residents will be protected, along with the proper upkeep of homes across the UK, and he wants to contribute to raising awareness about the challenges faced and ensure accountability. I hope that the Minister today will look at this case, these issues of abuses of legal proceedings, the use of bullying lawfare, using money and resources to shield the powerful from proper public scrutiny when they should be held to account, and that the Minister will look at bringing in new action to put in a robust, broad and comprehensive bill to prevent this going on.
Okay, that's the end of another GSA podcast. What do we learn from this one? Too many people profiting from a not-for-profit. Too much dead word in GreenSquareAccord. Too much failing to adhere to basic legal requirements. Thank you to everyone who's reached out with ongoing issues. I probably do another Dear Ruth, because that seems to be a great way of showing real issues from real residents and how they're affecting people. And obviously it gets more letters on the desk of Ruth Cooke. She probably don't read them. They get filtered out by her support staff because she's too far removed. She's too busy focusing on National Housing Federation. When do we get value for money? Okay, let's not go on about ranting and raving. Thank you to everyone who shows support, and thank you to the many and the nameless. Thank you. You know who you are. Thank you. Please keep it up. Without you, I'd just be one man on my own. Please, if you're enjoying this content, if you find it helpful, if you think it can help others, please like, subscribe. It really does help. I know we're here with you. Please like and subscribe. It does help. It does help the channel. Keep sharing it. Let's get the message out there. Let's change the narrative. Let's get the attention that we deserve as residents. Thank you very much indeed. This is GSA Podcast. See you next time.
Ruth Cooke at the helm, but the culture ain't right. Complaints every day. Customer ignored, never get the say. Never get